Dan, yeah. What's up?
Perfect. How you doing, Matt?
You doing well, you?
Good, man. Thank you so much for your time.
Yeah, definitely.
How's everything going? First of all, how have the past 2+ months been for you?
I mean, weird for sure. I think it's weird for everyone. I mean, I haven't been able to tour and stuff, which has been different, but doing all right. I've been doing some like streaming shows and things like that.
Do you miss the road? Do you have that itch like Willie Nelson that doesn't know what to do with
Yeah,
himself?
yeah, I do. Usually, if I'm home for a couple months, I start feeling like I want to get out on the road, play some shows, see some of the country.
Absolutely. And how's your family doing? Are you in Florida? Are you like hunkered down? Everyone safe and sound?
So we actually live in Nashville, but we're doing well. Been hunkered down for what I think 7 weeks now, 8 weeks, something like that.
Incredible, right? Like we're already in May. Like it's
Yeah.
nuts.
How have you been doing?
Good, good. I'm in Miami, so fellow Floridian.
Hmm.
Although you're from the Tampa area, but yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
absolutely, man. It's starting to get hot here, as you've written
Hmm.
about in some of your songs, and that humidity. But yeah, man. So listen, thank you so much for your time. I definitely want to talk to you a little bit about, your career, but want to start a little bit in the beginning, and then work our way up to American Wilderness and what's next, if that's all right with you.
Yeah, for sure.
Thanks a lot, Matt. Thanks a lot. So, I mean, first of all, I have to ask you, you started playing so young, everything started happening pretty quickly for you. I mean, when you were
Hmm.
22, you were already like hitting the big time. Did you always wanted to be an artist? Like when did you have an epiphany? Like, when you were a child, like, you hear some stories about like people like Steven Spielberg that they knew they wanted to be directors when they were like 4. Were you like
Yeah.
one of these?
Not really. I mean, I knew I liked music and started playing music fairly young. Bass was my first instrument, and I started playing that when I was 11. I didn't start writing songs until I was, gosh, like 16 or 17. Um,
Yeah.
and I mean, I enjoyed it. I didn't really think it was something I could do like professionally until I was probably like 19 or so and had started to play songs. Like for a while, I never would play songs for anybody. It's kind of just for me. But then when I started playing songs for people, I got a good reaction and then thought maybe this is something I could do. And so I guess I was 19 when I first formed a band in the Tampa area. We mostly just played in Tampa and sometimes Orlando, but just like Central Florida stuff.
So your band was called Brer, right?
Yeah, terrible name.
What were those days like playing with Brer and playing in Orlando and Tampa and I-4 in back and forth? Tell me a
Yeah,
little
I
bit
mean,
about.
it was fun. Definitely had a lot of terrible like dive bar shows that you kind of have to play when you're starting out. Had a lot of those. But yeah, we got to be friends with a lot of other people in the Central Florida music scene and had a lot of fun shows with them. And then when I was 22 was when I started just playing solo and actually through MySpace was signed to my label deal. Somebody from Atlantic Records heard one of my song "Honey, Let Me Sing You a Song" on my MySpace page at the time, and yeah, stuff kind of happened from there.
That's amazing. So that was Greg Nadel,
Yeah,
correct?
uh-huh. Yeah,
So Greg,
and that would have been 2008, or I guess the end
that's,
of 2007 was when he first contacted me.
so he
And
just sent you a message, like he just became your friend right under Tom on MySpace or something. Just kind of
I
sent
mean,
you a
it was a
message.
MySpace message, and that's why I didn't believe it at first. I thought it was like some kind of scam. It's like, hey, this is so and so from Atlantic Records. I'd like to hop on a call with you and whatever. So yeah, very very much a 2007 2008 thing to get signed to a record deal through MySpace.
I remember that. I remember the terrible wallpapers that people
Yeah,
have.
it was. But
Audio.
the thing I did kind of like about it was the that you could like put a song on your page. That was
Yeah.
always
Well, that was, but people overdid it. That was the problem.
yeah.
But yes, but you're right. Okay, so obviously, okay, so you signed with Atlantic. You signed with their new arm.
F stop
With their
music.
new arm. Yep. You sign with them, and immediately, like things start happening to you pretty quickly, right? If I'm, you do that EP that you recorded in Los Angeles at the Hotel Cafe.
Yeah.
How was that like? That recording? Were you nervous? Like this is coming so fast. Like, what are you
I
thinking?
was kind of nervous because I mean, I had played shows with the band and stuff, but I was still like pretty green when it came to performing and everything. That was fun. So I recorded that I had like a residency at Hotel Cafe while I was out there recording my album. So I think it was like a month I think it was Tuesday or Thursday night. I would play at Hotel Cafe. It's super fun. Still love playing at that venue. But yeah, that was in summer of 2008 when I was recording my first album, Take Us to the Start.
That's amazing.
I can't listen to that EP now just because I hear like how I hear every mistake and everything I would have done differently had I recorded it today.
Of course. But that's the beauty of it, right? Anyway, okay. And so you release this EP and you start getting compared to people like John Mayer and Jack Johnson, like all these like big names. I'm sure that's exciting, obviously opens new doors, but did that bring also like sort of like new pressures on you? Like, was that a little bit too much, or how did you like handle all this?
I guess maybe a little bit. I was, like I said, I was pretty new to all of it. So there was definitely like a learning curve, but I felt like definitely going on. I think you said you saw me play with Eric Hutchinson recently, right?
I did in the Snowbird tour.
So yeah, so my first real tour I did was at the was like fall and into winter of 2008 with Eric Hutchinson. And that was the first time I was out on the road playing shows every night for a while. And there's just something about that helps you like learn and get better at your craft really fast when you're in front of people every night doing it. And that was the first time I was doing that. So really, yeah, towards the end of that year, I felt like I grew a lot as an artist, and kind of was starting to figure out like more like what kind of artist I wanted to be and stuff. But
yeah, absolutely. Well, you have this great presence live. You make it feel like we're just hanging out in your little studio, except there's like 1,000 people or whatever with you. So that was pretty dope. Okay, so Take Us to the Start comes on in 2009. Mm-hmm. Top 10 album on iTunes. Like,
yeah, I was fortunate to iTunes put the like banner for the album on the main like homepage, so it got a lot of eyes on it. So that I was kind of fortunate with that, and that definitely helped the sales for sure.
Absolutely. So you wrote you co-wrote it with Eric Rose, mm-hmm. and Rose. I'm sorry if I'm butchering the last name.
Eric Roth is fine.
Yeah, neither or. Okay, but some that's where your songwriting starts really to shine, Matt. Mm-hmm. It's really impressive. You start thinking like in a perfect day, you start feeling like these relationships are on the rocks, but you start like making this theme of yours for the first couple albums that is really like uplifting. I feel like it's like you never shy away from the fact that life throws you punches, as we're seeing right now. But like you always did it, like with the chest up, smile on your face, going forward. That's pretty cool. And there's definitely a storytelling element to it.
Yeah.
And on your research, I came across that you love the band, you love Bob Dylan, you love Tom Petty. Do you get some of that inspiration from that?
I think so. Probably. I wouldn't say that my music sounds like any of them, but I would definitely say my songwriting is influenced. And I in those early years, I learned a lot from Eric Ross. He produced all the stuff that I put out when I was on Atlantic. And we started writing a lot together. I think before, especially in like the Brer days, my songwriting was much more, what's the word I'm looking for? Abstract, I guess. Yeah. And he kind of helped me to kind of ground it a little more, which I appreciate to this day. It was really helpful.
That's awesome. And and you also read a lot of like Charles Dickens and a bunch of stuff, right? Like Lord of the Flies.
Yeah,
I got some.
Especially that. Yeah, then and now I guess I would say so I'm way into John Steinbeck. Over like in the past few years, I've gotten into him, and I would say that that's probably influenced some of my writing too.
That's awesome. Okay. So you read Steinbeck, you have a little notepad, you just let it flow.
Not really. I guess it's more of just like what's absorbed. I'm not like taking notes as I'm reading, but it's just like comes from whatever I absorb in reading.
That's great. That's great, Matt. Okay, so then we go on to This World Won't Last Forever, 2013. Mm-hmm. Fantastic second album. And and I start seeing a continuation of the themes, but I do start seeing a little bit of an edge. Right. And, of course, Forever, which was in Grey's Anatomy, continues that theme of the fighting spirit. But in Restless Heart, which is one of your biggest singles, Beautiful song, by the way. It has a fighting, for the first time, I sense a little bit of a, kind of like a screw you to love, like with a
Uh-huh.
smile, of course. But
Yeah.
it reminds you of those like Tom Petty songs, like Don't Come Around Here No More,
Hmm.
I Won't Back Down, You Wreck Me, you know. Can you tell us a little bit about that song and how that came about?
It's funny you mentioned that because during the year that I was writing a lot for, there was a period probably in like 2010, I think it would have been, into 2011, where pretty much all I listened to was Tom Petty. I got into like a huge Tom Petty phase. So that, I think I wrote that song in 2011 or 2012. So I'm sure that had a lot, that kind of spirit of those songs kind of made its way into my own songwriting.
You can tell, definitely. And
Yeah.
where were, like, speaking of Petty, do you remember when he passed? Where were you? Like, did it hit you hard?
What was that? Sorry, you were breaking up a little bit. It's probably my
Sorry, sorry. No, just asking. When Tom Petty passed, did it hit you hard?
It did. Yeah, I was actually I was it, so I we had moved to Nashville at that point, and I remember being in Kroger in the grocery store.
Hmm.
Uh, I saw the news, and then like a minute later, I was getting a call from my dad because my dad knows how much I love Tom Petty, and I couldn't like there's no way I could have answered it because I would have been like weeping on the phone in the middle of a grocery store if I had
Yeah.
answered the call. But yeah, it was pretty sad.
It's pretty sad. It's a shame. I saw that last tour, that 40th anniversary, a couple months before he passed, and he couldn't move. And I just thought he was up there in age. I had never seen him before, so I'm like, okay, maybe he just can't move.
Yeah.
But then it came about that like his hips were really in pain, and he just didn't want to let the fans down. And I almost wish like he would have just canceled the shows, like
Yeah.
postponed the tour, man, and
Mhm.
get taking care of himself. But whatever. Anyway, okay. Well, that's great, Matt. So that album, obviously, fantastic, and you start seeing these different themes. When I was young, great song. One of your best songwriting, if I may say so. Just to those nights where you sat on the causeway, all you had was six string and a heart that beat, and you knew that it had to mean something. So things like this, like I have to ask you, do the lyrics come first for a song like this, and then you write the melody, or do you have the melody and then you fill it up with the
With
with
that one, actually, the line you just read, which is it's not the first line of the song, it's in the bridge of the song, but that was the first part I wrote. I had
Mhm.
those lyrics kind of for a little while, and then there was one night I just remember sitting at home, and I'd kind of been through a somewhat long period of writer's block, and that line that had just been laying around came to me. I'm like, okay, so I want to capture this feeling of like, what was it that made you want to start writing in the first place? And that's sort of what the song is about.
Cool, cool, Matt. Okay, and now we move on to your latest album, American Wilderness. Great piece. The producing is definitely more textured. It's definitely different. Um, can you tell us a little bit about that how you changed that production process versus your previous records?
Yeah, so that was like I said on the stuff I put out when I was on Atlantic. It was all with Eric Ross producing it, and this was my
Yeah.
first independent album. And I have a friend who lives in Nashville who plays with me whenever I do full band shows. He's one of those guys who is like talented at playing every instrument. So he plays like piano, guitar, mandolin, like whatever when I do full band stuff. And he's also a producer, and he had been getting into producing music and stuff. And so I thought it'd be cool to make the record with him. And so that's what we did. And yeah, it was great.
That's awesome, Matt. It's a great album, and definitely a lot of existentialism, like questioning in there.
Yeah,
It's a great piece.
that's kind of where I was at in my life at that point, and I feel like that kind of spirit is captured pretty well in the songs. It's
You
not
did.
it's pretty obvious.
It's not, and it's a very layered album, actually.
Mhm.
The research I've been, listening to your stuff, and this one like actually gets better with every listen. It's it just has a lot of layers, a lot of angles, so it's really cool in that regard. Well, that's awesome.
I appreciate it.
That's great. And are you working on some like are you just stating your next project, Matt? What's going on with your fourth album, or is it if you give us a hint?
Well, so after American Wilderness, because kind of the vision for that album was so focused for me, and I knew like what the album was. It was an album about like wrestling with faith and society and a lot of stuff. So after I wrote that, I kind of went through a long period of writer's block and have only recently started to write again and stuff. So we'll see. Nothing really solidified yet, but
Sure.
I had to at least put out like an EP or something before too long.
That's good. That's good, Matt. That's great. Great news for your fans. Speaking of your fans, and you mentioned that, tell us a little bit about these quarantine streams you've been doing. Really cool, intimate gatherings with your fans online.
Yeah, it's been fun. I have just been doing them on Facebook Live. I've tried to do like once every 2 weeks, and I'll play for just where I'm sitting right now in my basement for like an hour and a half. And it's been cool. It's been fun to because I mean I have like, not that it's like a lot, but I have random fans like in places where I don't tour, like in China or in European countries or Brazil or whatever. So it's been cool for
Wuhan.
get those fans kind of involved and stuff.
That's awesome. No, absolutely. That's great. That's great. I've noticed, and you have a great rapport with your fans. It reminds you of like, you know, those artists that like are like Dave Matthews, that have Pearl Jam, that are synonymous with their fans. So that's really cool to see. Okay, that's awesome. And I have to ask you, I read that you're a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan.
Yes.
Okay, what do you think of the new season?
I really liked
Store,
it.
Latte
Yeah.
Larry.
What's that? Latte Larry's? Yeah, it actually made me go back and start watching the whole thing from the beginning. So I'm in season 3 now.
Season 3.
Of the
Okay.
rewatch of it. But yeah, it's such a good show. I got into Curb Your Enthusiasm when I was back in 2008 when I was recording my first album in Los Angeles. There'd be a lot of nights where we're done recording and I'm just like, I didn't have a lot of friends out there at the time. So I didn't really have much to do except watch TV in my apartment out there. And so a lot of that was Curb Your Enthusiasm. I got into Curb actually before I even had seen much Seinfeld, which is kind of backwards, I feel like, for most people.
That's great. That's great. Do you relate to Larry David a little bit, if we're honest?
I think maybe everybody at least has a small part of themselves that's a little bit like Larry David.
Absolutely. Well, that's awesome, Matt. I mean, yeah, I mean, look, you've been super generous with your time. It's been really fun talking to you. I see you have some great posters there. Brandy Carlisle behind you.
Yeah.
I saw her right before the quarantine ended. She had a great show here. And Casey Musgrave.
One of my favorite live artists. She's so good.
She's so good. She's so good. I can't wait till we get to see you guys back on the road again.
I know.
What have you heard about your tour plans, or is everything on hold? Like what's the latest 411?
Yeah, I mean everything's just kind of on hold for now. Not really sure. At first, during the beginning part of it, there was places talking about like trying to book shows at the end of April, and obviously that didn't happen. I think it's going to be a little while until people feel comfortable gathering in venues and stuff again, but we'll see. For now, I'll keep doing corn streams every 2 weeks and see how it goes.
That's awesome, man. And listen, and you know, Florida is always your home.
Yeah.
So South Florida is your neighbor, and we can't wait to see you back here, man, and see you back on the road and connecting with your fans with your great music. Thank you so much, Matt.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
All right. Take care, man.
Thanks, Jamie.